extremely rare. We notice them when they do happen because they're so unusual and because they cause such shock waves. Certainly it'll be some time before the community around the village of Martlesham in Suffolk recovers from the shock of the murder of 82-year-old Doris Shelley in February. Nobody knows why anybody would have wanted to kill her. The motive may have been burglary, although police haven't yet discovered anything missing from her house. Mrs. Shelley had lived in the old mill house for the past 30 years. Recently, she'd been suffering from ill health, and neighbours and friends like Jenny Frost had been helping her out.
Well, I've known Mrs. Shelley for the past 6-7 years. About a year ago, she had an attack of shingles. So she asked me if I'd do the shopping for her, as she couldn't carry heavy bags. So for 3 times a week, I did her shopping.
Cold out there, isn't it, my dear?
Very happy lady. Expected very little out of life.
Oh, that's nice. That should be quick. You got everything for me?
Yes,
got all your important bits.
A keen conservationist. She loved her garden, her animals, all the wildlife. Very keen to listen to nature programmes, always up to date with current affairs, especially if that involved animals or anything to do with animals. She's a very kind, caring person, really. She has 2 cats she thinks the world of, always talking to them, chatting when she goes in the garden, calling them.
Sometime towards the end of January, another neighbour, Jacqueline Bear, was surprised to see that Mrs. Shelley apparently had a visitor.
I was driving through from Woodbridge on the main road at Martlesham, and as I was coming towards her bungalow, I saw a car parked actually in the main road with its hazard warning lights on. The boot was open, and I did see a man sort of hurrying into this little side gate.
The gate leads directly to Mrs. Shelley's house. But Mrs. Shelley didn't mention having received a visitor to anyone, and she certainly didn't appear disturbed or concerned. A couple of weeks later, Jacqueline Bear noticed the visitor again as she arrived home with her mother.
She said to me, "There's that car again." And I said, "What car?" And she said, "The red one up near Mrs. Shelley's." So then, of course, I had a look, and I saw a man from the side of the car walk into the little gate.
It is possible the man didn't actually call at the house. In any case, Mrs. Shelley again showed no sign of anything worrying her. Three days after that...
It was about 7:15 in the morning, and I just happened to see a man on the corner, halfway behind a bush sort of thing.
She thought it odd that this man should be hanging around by Mrs. Shelley's gate so early in the morning. The next morning, she saw him again.
He had shoulder-length brown hair, slightly wavy, bushy eyebrows and a fairly big nose, and he was quite tall, in his about 20s or 30s.
Wednesday, the 10th of February. Valentine Scoggins called, as she did every Wednesday.
Known Shelley about 10 years. I used to shop for her.
They all came.
Yes, yes. She asked me to get some shopping for her, which I brought round 10th of February, about 1:45. And I just said hello to her and how are you, and she paid me and I went off again.
Mrs. Shelley didn't say she was expecting anyone, but an hour and a half later she'd obviously received another visit. Mary Whelan was coming home from work.
At about 2:30 I noticed a bright red car parked in Doris Shelley's drive. It was very unusual to see a vehicle in Mrs. Shelley's drive.
Sometime between then and the following morning, Doris Shelley was viciously attacked. Jenny Frost found her.
I came to see Mrs. Shelley on the Thursday, late morning as usual, and got no reply. So I knocked on the window and I saw her laying on the floor. This roused her. She was very agitated and confused, but I shouted to her and told her I was getting help, which I did. I went to hospital with her and stayed with her for several hours, and told her that, you know, not to worry. I'd see her again soon and I'd look after the cats, and she smiled.
Well, Doris Shelley died 10 days later, and Roy Lambert, you still haven't been able to establish a definite motive for Doris Shelley's death.
No, this was a particularly vicious attack on a defenceless old lady. It may be that she discovered the man breaking into her home because there were signs of a search having taken place.
The most important clue we can focus on is the red car which was seen parked in Mrs. Shelley's drive.
That's right, she didn't get many visitors, and we have this sighting of a red Ford Sierra type car reversed into her garden, which is most unusual.
And that was that Wednesday afternoon. Then there was a red car seen on a couple of occasions in the fortnight leading up to the attack, which may or may not have been the same car.
Yes, it might not be the same car. Again, it's unusual for cars to park there. A man was seen going to her address. He may have been delivering something, we don't know.
But we certainly need to eliminate him if he's watching. The other unidentified person it's vital you trace is the man that the newspaper girl saw earlier that week.
That's right, he was a particularly scruffy individual who was seen on the Monday and Tuesday early in the morning. His distinguishing features were some dreadlocks or matted hair at the back of his head. He may have been sleeping rough or a traveller. The A45 isn't far from Mrs. Shelley's address, and he may have been passing through.
If you recognise him, please call us. Now, there was an attack on an elderly lady last year, and that was only 5 miles away in the village of Ike, and you think that there may be a link here. What exactly happened?
The link is because Susan Allen at the post office was attacked from behind, as was Doris, in a particularly vicious and violent way.
We have a short piece of security video from the post office, and you can see the man here acting rather strangely. He's trying to hide his face from the camera. He's certainly acting oddly. It's very important that we find out who this man is, because it was shortly after that the postmistress was attacked.
Yeah, she was attacked in September last year. It's important we identify that man. He may have been involved in that offence.
And why do you think they're linked, these two?
Because both the ladies were attacked from behind with unnecessary force to facilitate these crimes.
There is a substantial reward in this case too, isn't there?
Yes, there is a reward for any information, and we really need to catch who has committed these crimes.
Well, please do ring if you can offer any information at all to help. The number here, 081 811 8181, or you can ring Mr. Lambert's headquarters in Suffolk, and that number is 0473 613 577. That's 0473, the code for Ipswich, 613 577.
Our first case this month is one of those bewildering crimes where it's hard to see a motive. It's difficult to imagine why anyone would want to cause the tragedy they did. As you watch our reconstruction, is there someone you can help eliminate? And is there anyone you suspect could be involved? It took place in Suffolk 4 months ago. At the age of 21, Karen Hales had been a mother for 18 months. She lived all her life in Ipswich in Suffolk, worked part-time in Boots, but she spent every hour she could with Emily.
Karen was a very caring mother. She was very bubbly, real outgoing girl, full of confidence and devoted to Emily and her mother. Wasn't she, Jerry?
Yes, she was. She's very special to all of us. A lovely daughter and my best friend. She's very caring, too caring. Thought of other people more than she did herself.
I met Karen at school. One day she came up to me and asked me out very openly. That made me feel good. That's the sort of person she is, to sort of come up to you and sort of speak her mind. We went out with each other for 6 years. We were very happy together in them years. When she got pregnant, we were very happy. So we went and bought a house.
They bought a starter home in Ipswich in Lavenham Road and had lived there for a couple of years. On Saturday, the 20th of November, Peter had gone out with workmates. Karen was too frightened to call out.
Peter?
Sorry, were you asleep?
Oh, no. No, how did it go?
Oh, all right, we just went up the Swan. Everything all right here?
Well, no, I had a bit of a fright. I was sitting in the living room and I thought I heard a noise. So I went to the front door and somebody was trying that.
Although their house hadn't been targeted up to
No,
now,
it's too
there
far
had
to
been
go
a
to them.
spate of break-ins in the area.
Well, no, they weren't there for very long.
It's probably only kids anyway.
Yeah.
The next day was Sunday, the 21st of November.
Karen, where are my socks?
They're in the second drawer. Right, come on then. Put that down. Go and say so long to Daddy then. There we go.
All right, love, see you later.
All right. Oh, wait.
Oh, I've still got time to take you over to your mum's if you want to go.
No, it's all right. Me and Emma are going to clean, aren't we?
Oh, all right, then. I'll see you later. Bye-bye, Emily.
Peter was on a late shift and had to go to work at 4 o'clock that afternoon.
Bye-bye to Daddy then. Doing? Oh, Ta? Ta? Oh, are you eating bread? I have some, and I have some.
Near Ipswich town centre is the bus garage where Peter works. At 4:15 or so, Karen's parents called to see him.
Is that you, Peter?
Oh, all right. How are you doing?
All right. Wondered if you could have a look at the car. The starter motor's playing up again.
Ah, no problem.
Peter, you got a spanner?
No, Nigel's got it.
Is Karen at home?
Yeah, I asked if she wanted to come over to you, but she said she'd rather stay at home and get some housework done.
Oh, well, we'll pop round and see her in a minute.
Two locals were taking a short cut into Lavenham Road, near Karen and Peter's house.
We saw a man. I was going to ask the time, but I didn't get a chance because he was walking so fast. All I remember about him was he was wearing a parka with grey fur around the hood.
The man walked out onto the main London road, where a couple were driving home.
She looked better, but she still looks tired. What on earth is he doing?
We noticed a chap barely agitated in the central reservation. As we got closer to him, I thought he's going to make a dash for it, and sure enough, right at the last minute, he did.
I thought he was suicidal. He was wearing a dark parka coat with a grey trim. He appeared to be slim build, dark short hair, around about 20, 25.
About now, the two boys were passing Karen's home.
We were walking across the green when I looked over at a house. Is that smoke over there? That's just condensation.
A local resident was in Chantry Park, about 400 yards away.
Hello, Risky. Come on then. There's a good boy.
I decided to take the dog for a walk and had just left the car park and noticed a person moving in the distance. I noticed him because he was running bent over. And then he hesitated and stopped and stared. And I just felt that he was acting strangely and thought he'd been up to no good. I suppose he was aged about 20 to 30 years old, and he was wearing a blue-grey parka coat with a hood.
About the same time, Karen's parents reached Lavenham Road.
Karen? Karen? It's funny, it's open.
Karen was discovered by her father. She'd been stabbed several times, and her body had been set alight. Her daughter Emily was in the same room, but had not been injured.
there's any mum out there that is hiding anything, they just want to imagine what it's like. Every morning, Emily cries for Mummy. During the day, she's asking where Mummy is. Peter and I do the best we can, and Graham, but we don't take the place of Mummy.
John Saunders, why? I mean, what's your guess? Why did it happen?
We don't really know what the motive was in this case. As you can see, Karen was a loving, caring person with no enemies at all. What we do know is that items were stolen from the house, so we cannot rule out the possibility that it was a burglary.
This is an identical purse to the one that was stolen. Now, this is a fairly common sort of purse. Lots of these around in Britain, so please don't ring us just because you've seen one. But we are interested, presumably, if you've seen one thrown away around the Ipswich area.
Yes, certainly anything of that nature that's been discarded since November, we would be extremely interested in, or whether anyone's been in possession of that.
And a couple of knives as well. Again, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of these in the UK, so don't just ring us about these. They're laser knives. It's just if you've seen them thrown away in a bin or under a hedge or something like that in a way that could be connected to this. You want more witnesses in Lavenham Road, I gather, still, despite all your extensive inquiries?
Yes, we've traced over 1,000 people in connection with the inquiry, but we still have people unidentified that we can't put names to.
This guy wearing the parka, just go into his description a bit more for us.
Yes, he's described by various witnesses, and it may be that there's more than one person wearing a parka, but it's a parka with a fur hood. He's aged between 20 and 30, about 5 feet 10 tall, slim build, with thin, dark hair, which is cut fairly short.
And whoever killed Karen would have been presumably heavily bloodstained?
Yes, I'm certain that that's the case, that clothing would have been heavily bloodstained, and I would appeal for anyone who knows of somebody who was bloodstained on that day or who's discarded their normal clothing to contact us.
Sunday the 21st of November. There's a reward, as though that was necessary in a case as really despicable as this. If you can help anyway, the number here in the studio is 0500 600 600. Or you can ring the Instant Room at Suffolk Police Headquarters. That's 0473 613 577. There it is, 0473 613 577. Because it may not be an isolated crime. Perhaps the killer has shown lethal violence before, and the intense fear is he may do so again. Connie Sheridan and her daughter Jan were stabbed to death 10 weeks ago at their home in a remote part of the Fens on the Cambridge and Norfolk border. They lived on the outskirts of the village of Upwell, breeding whippets. And though they were on good terms with another dog breeder who lived not far away, Connie and her daughter lived a fairly isolated life.
There's a load of food coming for the dogs at 1:30. I do hope you can be back by then. My legs are not so good today, you know. And I don't want to be here on my own when they come. Not when I'm feeling so shaky.
I'll be back before then.
Well, I hope so.
You really shouldn't feed the cats, you know. It just irritates the dogs.
Those dogs can see too much. That's why they bark so much, you know.
Ah, she's just in a mood today. You shouldn't take me no...
Jan and Connie moved in 9 years ago, and I didn't really get to know them very well. And then, about 3 years ago, 2 teenagers broke in and let all the dogs out. And that's when we became more friendly, as we decided that we should keep an eye on each other's property if we were out. Connie was a sweetie. I like Connie very much. We got on very well together.
Oh, hello, Connie, it's Molly. Do you want to send Jan over? I've got newspapers for your kennels.
When Jan was at college and Mum was there on her own, I used to ring up to see if she was all right, and we'd have a nice long chat, you know, putting the world to rights.
Oh, hello, Jan.
The road to the Sheridans' home is a single track with hardly any traffic.
I was wary of any cars I didn't recognise because it's a dead-end road and I'd suffered a number of thefts of farm machinery in the past. So when I didn't see the car return again, I decided to go and have a look for myself.
It was a pale-coloured car parked next to Connie and Jan's house.
G567PVF.
But that registration number doesn't exist. Did he get it wrong, or was the number plate false?
The Fenland drains are noted like for their coarse fishing. There's bream here, there's roach, there's pike, there's zander. I'd seen her out walking the dogs on a regular basis, and on the Thursday we were actually packing up to go home.
Good morning.
Morning.
There were other fishermen at Pingle Bridge in early January. Were you there? And did you see the Whippet Lady, or anything unusual? We know Jan went into Upwell that Thursday afternoon. Then, presumably, she went home. Next morning, on the Friday, neither Jan nor Connie had put out their rubbish for collection. It was the first time that had ever happened.
Jan used to collect my dog world on a Friday. Sometimes it would be a Saturday. And of course that weekend it didn't come.
Hello, this is the Sheridan residence. Please leave a message after.
My friends came to pick me up on the Saturday, about midday. When we drove past, I noticed that the curtains were still partially across. Saturday evening, I was still a bit concerned. I looked over the gate and I could see the lights were on in the kitchen, and I thought, oh, that's all right, you know.
But on Sunday, Jan failed to turn up for work at nearby kennels. The owner was alarmed, especially when she heard Jan's whippets in distress.
Jan was very reliable, conscientious, but most importantly, she really loved the dogs. Dogs were her life, her passion. I thought something was wrong because in the 5 years she's worked for us, she's there on the dot. She's never been sick, never not turned up.
Jan!
Have you seen Jan today? She didn't turn up for work and there's no reply at the house, but the dogs are all barking. Something must have happened to them. Just so unlike her to not turn up and not phone.
Ready for lunch, Molly?
Oh, I'm going to find my husband.
I'll call the police.
Jan! Connie! You better wait for the police.
The smell and the baying of the dogs made it clear that something terrible had happened.
I still feel they're there. It's just like a bad dream, you know. I can't imagine that they're not there. I'm still going to do things like ring them up and say I'm going out, or coming back from shopping, I don't see Jan's car and I think, oh, Jan's gone out, and these silly things. And then I say to myself, oh, I must let Connie know that. I think, oh, stop being so stupid. I mean, you think you'll probably wake up and they'll be there.
Paul Chapman, in this truly awful crime, you've been investigating for 10 weeks, you've never divulged the motive. What do you think it is?
We're unclear on the motive. It isn't clear by any means, but we're, at this 10 weeks into the inquiry, we think the motive is actually sexual.
And given how isolated their house is, down this dead-end lane, is it somebody who's local?
It's undoubtedly somebody who currently lives locally, or somebody who perhaps in the past has lived in that locality, has got some very, very good local knowledge. If you know the area, you just wouldn't stumble across Janice and Constance's cottage. It is very, very isolated.
Do you suspect they might also have known either Jan, or, well, either of them, either Connie or Jan?
Yes, if it isn't somebody living locally or has lived locally, it's somebody who's particularly targeted these two ladies.
Now, if you've got somebody who is perhaps sexually rather odd, I mean, with all that implies, someone who would murder, I mean, that's not anything you'd imagine of a relative or a friend. Put all this together, grey car, silver grey car, is that connected?
Yes, we're fairly sure it is. This is a vehicle which was seen by a witness in a farm access immediately next door.
You're not
to
sure
Janice's
what
cottage.
sort of car it is, are you?
We're not. I mean, the witness describes the vehicle as being possibly grey or silver in colour, certainly light coloured, saloon or hatchback, and around about a medium size.
If you're the brother, sister, flatmate, if you've been a former cellmate, if he's been in prison, if you're an uncle of the offender, is there anything you'd notice about him?
I'd like people to think very, very carefully about somebody close to them in the days leading up to and after the murders of Constance and Janice.
This is at the end of the first week of January?
That's right. Did you notice some change in their behaviour? Perhaps they were traumatised. Perhaps they were actually suffering from some type of stress. And of course we mustn't forget that after the murders, the offender may well have been bloodstained. They may have washed clothing which is totally out of character. Or of course they could have discarded clothing.
And the offender might have been in the house for quite some time, so he might have been away from his home or from even his place of work for many, many hours.
That's a possibility. In fact, hours running into perhaps a day.
Now look, let's go back to this car, because obviously it's terribly important, at least to eliminate.
Yes, it is.
The witness, this is the number that he remembered, and it's probably that he transposed a couple of, he was remembered for quite a long time, transposed a number or two.
Yeah.
But somebody's got a car with a number plate like that.
Yes, it's likely that that index number has either been remembered slightly incorrectly, but of course we can't rule out the possibility that it's a false number. And that actually adds weight to the fact that this is a premeditated crime.
Now, a lot of people knew the Whippet lady, and I know you want to contact anybody who knew Jan or who knew Connie. A terrible, terrible crime, this.
That's right, we're looking to local people to provide us with information. People who were visiting the area, and they would include fishermen fishing for pike and sander in the near waterways, and also people within the Whippet community. Their whole lives revolved around their love of breeding and showing Whippets. Nationally, they travelled the country doing this.
OK, well, even if you don't think you've got a crucial clue, Paul Chapman and his colleagues really need all the help they can get on this one. Please ring if there's anything that rings a bell. There's a reward up to £25,000, but of course there's much more at stake than that. Crimewatch is live. The number is free, 0500 600 600, and there are more detectives, not only here, but standing by in Norfolk, and they're on 01553 665 000. That's King's Lynn, 665 000. A year ago, 17-year-old Vicky Hall was murdered in Suffolk. Detectives had several leads, but all have proved fruitless, and that pretty much takes them back to square one. So 13 months on, it's up to you.
What's your favourite pop group?
At the moment, at this moment in time, it's the Spice Girls.
Ooh, best actor.
What's Leonardo DiCaprio?
DiCaprio. What about drinks here, Vicky?
Capri. Oh, yeah.
She was our firstborn. She was just Victorian, yeah. She was our little girl. And she was a little girl. She wasn't a tomboy. She was a proper little girl. Dresses, makeup, music. She was nearly 18, an adult. At her age, I'd been working a couple of years. She was making her own decisions. She was talking about going to university, going on holiday with her friends. It's growing up. You have to let them grow up. You can't keep them at home with you all the time.
That nice one wasn't there tonight. Yeah. Do you see what his mate was wearing? Yeah, gross. Oh. I fancy some chips.
Yeah, I've only got taxi money left.
Me too.
Chips means walking.
Yeah.
Chips.
Chips.
Happy, friendly little girl. She did enjoy her dancing. She was quite intelligent. She was doing well at the schoolworks and things, and she was really enjoying the sixth form.
And I
ring you tomorrow?
Yeah, you hear me saying out of the way home.
Put your shoes back on.
See ya.
Bye.
She got onto the estate where she'd lived since she was born, and she thought she was safe there.
I was just walking past the fish and chip shop in Trimley, and I thought I heard a scream, but obviously I didn't think at the time. I think that I should have registered, maybe thought about what little Vicky was walking down there. But because you never think that it's going to happen, so that's probably why I didn't.
Vicky disappeared, and her family agonised about where she was and what had happened to her. 25 miles away at Creeting St Peter, there's one potential clue. The morning after Vicky vanished, a customised blue Vauxhall Astra van was seen in Pound Lane. It needs to be checked out of the inquiry because a week later, Vicky's body was discovered dumped in a ditch beside the road.
The feelings are just the same a year ago as they are today. It's just that most of the time we cope with them a lot better. But we all miss her so very, very much. When your child gets married, you know they're going to move away, but they're always in contact. You can phone them up, you can write a letter, you can speak to them. But we haven't got that anymore. Victoria's gone, and we can't ever speak to her again. And that feeling never, ever goes away. It's there all the time.
So tragic, so little to go on. It's had so much publicity, this. It was such a big event in East Anglia. Presumably everybody who had solid suspicions has long ago come to you.
That's right, it's a terrible crime which affected the whole of the community. But I believe there's still somebody out there that may be wondering, although not wanting to believe it, that some member of their family, their husband, their son or a relative, their behaviour may have changed about this period from the 19th of September a year ago.
So what you're asking for is anybody, in what sort of area? In the whole of East Anglia or in the whole of
Anybody
Suffolk?
who may know that their relative has got connections with Creeting St Peter or Trimley St Mary in Suffolk, who may have noticed behaviour changing. Perhaps somebody that morning came home, they were dishevelled.
That would have been a Sunday morning.
Sunday morning in the early hours between, say, 2:30 and 6 a.m, something like that, where they would have come home and the next morning, quite unnaturally, wanted to wash their clothing or wanted to clean the car. Maybe they sold the car.
Or perhaps took an unusual interest in the publicity thereafter. I mean, just anything that arouses suspicion.
Anything that arouses suspicion and that there may be connections with that area. I know people would not want to believe that of someone that they knew, but we really need help to find out what happened to Vicky.
Now, this customised blue Astra van, there can't be many of those around, but you still have been unable to trace the one that was seen.
Yes, we've eliminated a number from the East Anglian area, but it's still important. This vehicle may be involved or it might not be. He may be a witness. He may have seen something which is suspicious. I would appeal for whoever that driver is or somebody who knows that vehicle to come forward and ring us at the incident room.
OK, well, if you have any suspicions, even very slight suspicions, let the police check it out. It's easy for them to do so. Call here in the studio. Or you can call the incident room, that's on 01473 613540. And if you want to give information anonymously on this, or any other crime, you can call Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111.